Please be seated. The court is now back in session. I'd like to hand the floor once again to the defense team for Q Sampon to continue with their key document presentation. You may proceed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. When we broke off for lunch, I was trying to present two documents, documents that refer to the negotiations with the Vietnamese in 1967. First document, E3/221, which is the record of a meeting titled A Study of the Reaction of the Vietnamese during the fifth meeting in the morning of the 14th of May 1976. This document is an overview of ongoing negotiations with Vietnamese regarding border problems. Reference is made to the Brazier Maritime Line as well as problems relating to land boundaries. What is important to note in this document is the fact that a priori, the members who attended the meeting agreed that it was important to pursue the negotiations, and I will refer to a passage. The ERN is as follows, and it is in French: 00386180, and another passage on the next page, and in Khmer it is 00000815, and it continues on the next page. And the ERN in English is 00182697, and it continues on the following page. The extract that I'm reading on the first page is a message by Comrade Noon, who is talking about these negotiations. And he explains how those negotiations were conducted and the composition of the delegation. And this is what he says. Regardless of the results, we'll maintain the party's position. We'll maintain the same atmosphere, the same solidarity, and the same friendship. But if the situation of negotiations doesn't change, the atmosphere could become tense. We can find the means to pacify the situation by concluding the negotiations on a status quo. Dam Nguyen is not an intelligent politician. He is a negotiator who is availing himself of the law, but the law of capitalists. He is negotiating with us as if he were negotiating with Americans. He perhaps does not understand friendship and solidarity. He wants to pressure us in the negotiations. And he concludes by saying that the members of his delegation are certainly divided. We should ally with those who can cause disorder in their ranks. To conclude, the negotiations today were not all that tense, just an expression of one another's stances. And on the next page, it is also important to note the message of Comrade Kieu, that is Son Sen, who also refers to these negotiations, but he also talks of the military situation. And he says, and it is the third paragraph of his speech, therefore, as I see it, our positions 2, 3, and 4 cannot be achieved. We can maintain the same atmosphere, but each side knows its own stance. If the negotiations are prolonged, that will lead to tension. I agree with Comrade Nguyen that we should find a way to proceed with the negotiations. The point of Vietnam firing at boats is not a strong point. On the international stage, Vietnam still needs us, so they are not strong. We should find some way to end the negotiations and maintain the atmosphere as it is. And he continues in the next paragraph, referring to international issues and noting, I quote, Vietnam and Thailand have taken control of all our waters. The maritime opening up looks like a shell. And he says that Vietnam and Thailand have taken control of our ocean, the ocean. Vietnam does not gain anything. If they have a dispute with China, again, it becomes even more complicated. In the present situation, if they attack and take our islands, it will be difficult. They threaten us, but there is still no agreement. We relax, do not curse, do not accuse them. We want to maintain the same atmosphere. I find this important. That was end of quote. I consider that this is a record of a meeting in which reference is made to those negotiations. There appears to be a consensus among the persons attending that meeting that negotiations with Vietnam should continue. And Son Sen says that even though the Vietnamese opened fire on Cambodian boats, the negotiations should be continued. I am relating these documents with what the witnesses appeared before this chamber and testified to regarding their work in maritime zones and the instructions they received from Son Sen and the hierarchy. Another point I would like to make, and I refer to ERN 00386 187 in French. This is still with regard to the issue of negotiations and the manner in which those negotiations were conducted. And I would end by referring to the last page in the documents with the message of Comrade Secretary Pol Pot, who states, and I quote, free translation, so we are keeping, or rather we act gentle. We go watch their movie. They do not have any reason to break off from us because we'll keep smiling freshly and have never cursed them. If they break it off, they gain nothing, they only lose. End of quote. And here again is the Comrade Secretary who ends by saying what the way forward is. And we are still talking about negotiations. The date is important because we are dealing with the position of the government and the Council of Ministers, or rather the committee, says Council, on that day. And it refers to the need to continue discussing and negotiating. And we cannot say that there is a policy to attack the Vietnamese. In general terms, whether we are talking of combatants or civilians, that would transpire from these documents. Another point I'd like to make is that it is important to note that on the first page of this document, the presence of Comrade M, alias Kyo Sampan, is referred to, but he does not speak at any time during that meeting. Another point which echoes what is said in this document is the meeting of the Council of Ministers of 31st of May 1976, document E3/794, in which, and the ERN in French, is 00611 618, and the ERN in Khmer is 0000786, and in English it's 00182676, and here it's Comrade Secretary presenting a report in which he explains the position and says the following regarding border problems. Last paragraph in French. As regards the border problems, there is no solution according to experiences we've had in the world. In certain places, we need hundreds of years to find solutions. In our case, we will continue resolving the problems. During negotiations, the party underscored 3 wishes. First of all, if we didn't succeed to find solutions, we'll have to maintain the status quo. Secondly, the situation is better than it was in the past to a certain extent. And thirdly, we must try to achieve a minimum results. Now our first and second wishes have been achieved, end of quote. This is 31st of May 1976, and it confirms the resolve to continue negotiating. As regards what is said regarding Vietnam, we have no policy of this CPK that likens the enemy to anything other than a state enemy if there are difficulties. And it is a February 1978 revolutionary flag document E3/744, ERN in French 00538-944, ERN in Khmer 0006440, ERN in English 00464063. And the position is that in this document it is obvious that they are still referring to Vietnam as a state, and that if there are any disputes, they are defined as being with the Vietnamese state and not with Vietnamese per se. And it is stated in the ERN document I've referred to, and it is an analysis done in the revolutionary flag. In the paragraph, it said that secondly, the defeat of the Vietnamese from a political point, and I skip the first paragraph and I talk about what is considered as the dead end in which Vietnam would have found itself during that period. And in the final analysis, they find themselves in a total dead end. Another aspect of Vietnamese policy is the fact that the Vietnamese people clearly see that their aggressive policies have led their country and the Yuan people into painful destruction. Part of it was free translation. And the second point is that as for another goal of the Yuan policy to set up a Yuan organization or party or a movement to be brought from Yuan territory into Cambodia, to be put in position or announced when they have seized some locations inside Cambodian territory, that has totally failed, end of quote. This is important because we find that in this revolutionary flag, reference is made to the Vietnamese policy in general and the Vietnamese people who are referred to in this document, and it said that they've seen clearly that the policy to invade Cambodia is not reasonable. That is important. And in the last paragraph of this document in French, further clarification is provided to the effect that the problems is with Vietnam as a country and not with Vietnamese. Last paragraph. We have been able to persevere and hoist high the flag of independence and autonomy and the need to be masters of our own destiny, to raise high the flag of independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, and to hoist high the flag of Cambodia's popular honor. And what follows is important. The metaphor of the flag is not neutral, because they're referring to the flag of the country, and it proceeds to say that we have to hit hard and have broken the flag of aggression and expansion and territory swallowing. We have to hit hard and have broken the flag of the Indochina Federation of the Yuan. We have to hit hard and have broken the flag of fearing large countries in the ideology of surrender, and we have to hit hard and have broken the flag of the ideology of being a large country of the Yuan. The Yuan flag of one party, one country, and one people has also been hit hard and broken in the most humiliating manner. End of quote. And here again, this echoes what I said earlier. We have here a policy which is a leitmotif in what is said, and it is that the problem of a Vietnamese state that wants to annex territory, the problem is that of a Vietnamese state which wants to attack the territorial integrity of the country. So there's no talk of Vietnamese as individuals and as civilians. So I think this is an important point, bearing in mind that this revolutionary flag dates back to February 1978. To conclude my presentation of the series of documents we would like to bring to light, a while ago I referred to a number of problems on the border between Vietnam and Cambodia and the various movements that were referred to in the press, liberation movements, rebellious movements, whether we're talking of the situation within the country or abroad. We have two other articles of newspapers relating to that subject, and they are related to the former soldiers of the Khmer Republic, because these articles refer to movements of rebellions or rebels or attempts made by certain persons to return to Cambodia in order to bring down the government of Democratic Kampuchea. And such movements are spearheaded by soldiers of the Khmer Republic. I refer to document E3/7314, and it is an article of the newspaper Libération of June 1976. And in this regard, the date again is important, and this time we are not talking of movements on the Vietnamese border, but on the border between Cambodia and Thailand. And reference is made inter alia to that ERN of that French document. I believe that the document is only in French, and the ERN is S00005779, in which reference is made to Molinac, and it is on the second column of that article in French. The journalist referred to several groups explaining that there may have been people in the jungle who presented themselves as members of resistance movements of the Khmer Rouge, who were rather mercenaries looking for money, and the journalist states the following: apart from those groups for whom resistance appears particularly to be an additional means to make a bit of money, there is a whole series of groups depending on one politician or the other, or one general or the other of the former regime, who find in the resistance a common means to make some money and to regain their lost prestige. these groups are very weak numerically and inactive. They are also divided and have personal ambitions and suffer from the corrupt regime of which they are derivatives. It was announced in Paris in April the creation of some of these groups under the banner of Molinak, the Movement for the National Liberation of the Khmer, and they come under two strongmen of the regime, Ung Tam and Sangbong Tan, who are now living in exile in France. On the Thai border town, they have seen former Minister of Lon Nol and Seren Sensambo, and they set up their headquarters in that border town. As for resistance, pockets of resistance on the Cardamom Mountains, these are to be cross-checked, even though it is unlikely that such groups would be able to form a stronghold on the border. There's only one group that is active, and it is a liberation front in the north of Cambodia, and the 200 members are armed and fighting on the Thai border province of Burinam. This group, composed of former soldiers and officers of Lon Nol, are directly organized and equipped by special services of the Thai army, for whom they provide various intelligence services. So when we're talking of enemies or spies, we have this article of 1976, which refers to this Molinak movement on the border between Thailand and Cambodia, with intelligence elements who hail from that Thai state. This information is echoed again in the Bangkok Post, and that is document E3/7316. And the title of the article is in English, because I believe it only exists in English, and the article is titled
Months in Northwest Cambodia. Et voilà ce qui est.
This is what is stated at the beginning of the article. Anti-communist resistance is spreading in northwestern Cambodia.
Between Khmer Rouge units and anti-communist guerrillas, a resistance leader told Agence France Presse. The leader, a former officer in the Khmer Republican Army, when Marshal Lon Nol ruled Cambodia, said his organization, the Liberation Front for Northern Cambodia, had small groups of 20 to 30 men scattered between the Thai frontier and the Tonle Sap Great Lake. According to the leader, the Liberation Front for Northern Cambodia has 200 well-armed and well-trained men in guerrilla units, which have communications equipment. They are constantly on the move, he said, in the northwest forest zone. The front is at present conducting negotiations with other resistance groups operating in western Cambodia, known as Molinak, the leader said. Molinak has network in Paris and contacts in several Western countries, he said. A small liberated zone has already been established to the south of the border town of Poipet, across from Thailand, according to the resistance leader. It consists of about 100 square kilometers in the heart of the jungle, he said. Fin de citation.
End of quote. And the rest of the article deals with what is said and what happens in that zone. So this is another important element. In April 1976, there are allegations of incursions staged by people presenting themselves as members of rebellions or rebellious movements aimed at attacking the regime in power. And these are in the northwest zone, and they are making incursions in such northwest zones. So this is a very important point as regards incidents that may have occurred and the manner in which people viewed attacks in Phnom Penh. And lastly, a last point, which echoes what happens in that border zone with Thailand, document E3/7290, and it is the first page. It is an article by a researcher at the University of Yale. So it's a scholarly work, but what is important to note is that the ERN in French, 011727118, and the ERN in Khmer is 01152-710, and the ERN in English is 00993809. This scholar refers to the problem of the border disputes with Thailand, and it is the last paragraph of the page in French. This border dispute was partly due to competing claims by Thailand and Cambodia concerning that border zone. It is believed that it is also the work of the operation of the forces of the right wing in Cambodia, which benefits from the secret support of Thai forces and is using Thai territory for that purpose. This force, referred to as Khmer Sarai, was composed of former Lon Nol Khmer groups. One of them belonged to the former Cambodian Prime Minister Im Tam, whose base was on the border of Prachin Buri and Battambang provinces. End of quote. Part of it was free translation. This was a last point as regards these conflicts and incursions from the Thai border. This ends my presentation on this segment, and of course, we will revisit them as part of our responses to any questions asked.
President, thank you. The hearing today has come to an end, and the Chamber will resume its hearings tomorrow on Friday, 26 February 2016 at 9 a.m. The Chamber will continue to conduct the key document presentation hearings in relation to the treatment of the targeted groups, Cham Vietnamese and former officials of the Khmer Republic. In particular, the Chamber will hear the responses and also any other observation of parties by 26 February 2016. And tomorrow, the Chamber will not conduct its hearing to allow parties to get ready for responses and observation on the documents presented by parties. Please be informed and be on time. Security personnel are instructed to bring the accused Khieu Samphan and Nuon Chia back to the detention of the ETCC and have them returned into the courtroom on Friday, 26 February 2016 before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.